Hey everybody, Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com, back to do another analysis of the Steelers' disappointing, really heartbreaking 26-23 overtime loss in Week 5 to the Baltimore Ravens. Pittsburgh drops to 1-4 on the season, and that certainly could put a stake in the Steelers' playoffs hope. Certainly not fully guaranteed, but we talked about this on the podcast during the week and talked about it on Twitter before the game, and it's really obvious to everybody now. But the difference between winning that game, going to 2-3, potentially leading the AFC North somehow had Cleveland lost. If you beat Baltimore, and then as opposed to going 1-4, should you lose it, which is obviously what happened, and feeling just a mile away from the playoff picture, was absolutely monumental. So this was that critical kind of must-win, gotta have it win, and it did not happen. Now, obviously, there were some crazy circumstances. Mason Rudolph getting hurt on one of the honestly most vicious hits I've seen in a game, especially Steelers-Ravens. The only hit I can really compare it to in terms of just the intensity and just how scary it was the Ryan Clark, Willis McGahee hit in the, what was that, 08 championship game where, McGahee got knocked out cold and Clark took a really big shot on that too at the end of that game. It was one of the scariest hits that I've seen. Now, the good news is we don't know a whole lot of information about Rudolph right now, but obviously he was able to walk off the field with the help of teammates and trainers and doctors. Teammates say he's doing better now, and that he went to the hospital and obviously suffered a concussion. But it could have been a whole lot worse, I guess, in that aspect, that he's alert and conscious and able to talk and move around a little bit. So his health is obviously the most important thing. We don't know his status going forward, and that's a secondary concern. Obviously, you want to make sure the medical side is diagnosed and he's treated the way he needs to be treated. But if he can't go, then obviously you're probably going to see Duck Hodges in on next week's game. But I thought the team rallied and obviously fought till the end, even offensively, with a guy like Devin Hodges making his NFL debut. They let him throw down the field. He made some throws down the field. Obviously, he had the terrible, throw across his body that was picked off by Earl Thomas that was negated, thankfully, by a defensive holding call, I think, on Nick Vannett. I forget who was flagged for that on the Ravens side of things. But, again, just issues on possession downs, 3-9. Being able to finish drives, being able to move the ball consistently, it was a struggle, and that's been the story really of every game this year, sans Cincinnati. And I don't have a whole lot of new information. It was just kind of painful to try to work your way down the field. Some deep shots to Johnny Holton and others didn't pan out, and then obviously end of the game you have the Juju fumble, and that's going to be the defining play of this game, rightfully or wrongfully. That is the play, and just like last year's Saints game, this is the one that's going to haunt him, and the one you'll circle when you think about this season and say, if you hold on to that football, no guarantee you're going to get points there, but you're in good position. You're around midfield. Only need a field goal to win. Boswell's been money. You're kicking to the closed end of the stadium, so the stars are sort of aligning. So again, Juju, I thought, played well. Before that fumble, had the great touchdown catch, staying on his feet to run that one in. Gutted his way through a toe injury, barely practiced the entire week, but you got to have good ball security, and there's a certain level of irony to it. A week ago he's telling Deontay Johnson about keeping two hands on the football, going to the ground. Obviously a slightly different circumstance there. It was a great play by Marlon Humphrey, a top corner in football, but you just got to hold on to the football. I mean, that's as simple as that. And it doesn't all fall on Juju's shoulders, this loss, but it certainly is a big part of it, and one that's going to stick with him and stick in the minds of Steelers Nation. So I thought overall the offensive line did a nice job. Again, I thought Rudolph did a good job. I mean, the play he even got hurt. I mean, just the throw he had, third down, escape the pocket, pressure in his face, stand tall, deliver a strike to Washington was probably the best play he's made so far in his NFL career. Unfortunately, came at one heck of a price. So we'll see next week. Again, if Rudolph can't go, which I imagine he won't be able to, but we'll find more information out on Tuesday. You'll see Devin Hodges likely get this start. Paxton Lynch probably promoted from the practice squad to the 53-man roster and go from there. But obviously, it's as difficult of circumstances as it could be. Devin Hodges was in May, a tryout player in rookie minicamp and made the team and had a good preseason, got cut and came back. You guys know the story there. So that's the situation the Steelers are in right now. And it's a painful one. Absolutely. It's a heartbreaking situation for the offense to struggle this much because the defense is playing so well. In all the years of the offense carrying the defense and the defense trying to get better and all the investment in that side of the football has finally paid off. Unfortunately, it comes in a year where the offense has struggled almost as much as anyone in football. I'm sure maybe the Jets and Dolphins are a little bit worse, but that's about it. Maybe Cincinnati. Regardless, it's been a tough showing for the offense because of the injuries, obviously, but because of their own poor execution at times as well. But defensively, again, the keys to winning the NFL today: red zone defense, turnovers, those kind of big splashy plays. And this defense is now up to 19 sacks and 12 takeaways through 5 games. Just phenomenal numbers across the board. And I don't think it's a fluke. I think the talent's there. It took a lot. I mean, it took investing everything, draft picks, trades, free agency money, to get it to work, but it finally has. And you have, I think, one heck of a defense. It's opportunistic, creates big plays, and isn't letting those moments go like they did last year. Whether that's Mike Hilton, Minkah Fitzpatrick's obviously been an excellent addition to this team. Devin Bush with that crazy interception he had down the seam where he kind of redeemed himself for jumping off sides on that 4th and 6 that the Ravens picked up after a short 4th and inches play. But this defense has been excellent. It's certainly kept this team in every game. And the stat that blows my mind, in one small sense it's positive, but in a larger sense negative, the Steelers are 1-3 this year in games where they win the turnover battle. They're 1-3. The only one ever Cincinnati, had turnover advantage in Seattle game, in the San Francisco game, and then in Sunday's Baltimore game, and lost all 3. The rest of the NFL, when they win the turnover battle, they're 37-8-1. So Steelers 1-3 in those situations. That kind of tells a story that despite the defense's best efforts, you can't get a victory when you win the turnover margin, which is rare. You think if you do that, you're going to be sitting pretty, but unfortunately not the case. On the defense, certainly the run defense could have been better. They could have, not given us some big plays downfield. The touchdown to Hollywood Brown, no one making a play on the football there. Sure, I'm sure the defense can look back at it and say, we got to make some of those plays. The Adeney roughing the passer was a bad call, but one that was called nonetheless, and that could have easily changed the tide of the game. Let Baltimore go down there and tie it up. But it's just the defense is playing well. I think that's the bottom line, and the offense unfortunately isn't a year because of a variety of reasons. They're not anywhere close to that level, and that's unfortunate because if the offense hypothetically was playing even 75% of what it had been in previous years, you'd be talking about a really good Steelers team right now and one with Super Bowl aspirations as opposed to sitting here 1-4. But again, understanding the injuries certainly have not done this team any favors. Not that the Steelers will let that be an excuse, but that's difficult. And then finally, special teams, just kind of, positively, I thought Barry had a good game. Boswell's been perfect so far. He's been excellent. Rainy, kind of windy early on. Game at Heinz Field today, and just was excellent. But the return game, obviously a huge issue. Tomlin admitted and really chastised the kick return game, and rightfully so, for kicking off in overtime because the return game had done such a poor job. Johnny Holton should have taken a knee on the opening kickoff, returns it out 2 yards deep, gets to the 11-yard line, just a mess there, and you don't get any better really the rest of the way. And Daney was called for holding that knocked another one back to the 12-yard line. Switzer had another return that goes to the 15, just no juice there. And listen, I know people will poke at me, and that's fair, that's fine, about Danny Smith and, my man crush on Danny Smith, but I've been as critical and honest and upfront and no excuse making when it comes to the kick return game. I've said that's been the worst part of special teams, and there's really no good excuse for it for several years now. They've been in 29th and 30th and 31st in the NFL in kick return average for the last 2 years, and it hasn't been a whole lot better even prior to that. I think the best they've ever finished in kick return average is like 15th. So it's been really poor, and it continues to be poor. They're trying to rotate guys, trying to find someone that fits. I think you got to make a change. I think either you got to go with a new return man, some new blockers up front potentially, maybe get a Jalen Samuels out of there, or Benny Snell might be on that unit. I'm not sure. Well, hopefully getting guys like Rosie Nix and Anthony Chickle back will help. But it's been awful. There's no getting around that, and that's a big aspect of this team that's struggling. And normally you would think, well, teams don't do a lot of kick returns these days, but when you have a team, especially a Baltimore team, that knows how poorly Pittsburgh has done with their return game, they're intentionally kicking it short, and they did that last year. That's not new, and they're doing it this year too, and daring Pittsburgh to make a play, and they can't. So that's definitely a black eye on this team right now. It has to get addressed, and I think you have to make some major changes and some big personnel shifts at minimum to try to get some better results, because this team just doesn't have it right now. But bottom line is, offense couldn't make enough plays. Defense played so well to keep this team in it. You get in that 10-0 hole early. You fight and claw your way back. You get some big plays. I think this team has 18 points off of however many turnovers they've created this year. That's just an abysmal number, and it's just not good enough right now. So it's really unfortunate because this defense looks really talented and making big plays, and just nothing else is going right for this team. Injuries, offense, special teams, it just not going together, and that's a shame. So 1-4, still have a chance technically, but the odds obviously are very low at this point. Had to have this game, that would have changed the whole tide. Credit his team for fighting hard, rallying, staying together, and nearly pulling it off, but just not enough. And that kind of sums up the Steelers season. Just not enough. So we'll recap this game throughout the week. Let me know your thoughts about the loss and the future of the Pittsburgh Steelers for 2019, whether you're listening on YouTube. Follow me on Twitter at Alex_Kozora or follow on the website SteelersDepot.com. Thank you guys so much for listening, and we'll talk to you soon.